Hola amigos, bien o no, y saludos desde Inglaterra. Am, Hoy el tema es claridad y por qué esa es una con las cosas más importantes cuando estamos hablando. So ese es el tema de hoy. So, good evening and hello again from England. Give me a quick cup of tea. So, the theme of the day is to remember in our practice clarity. Clarity is key because we can think of all kinds of sophisticated, clever and interesting things to say, but if when we actually say it, we're not clear, then our message is lost. So when you're practicing your speaking, remember that you need to find a tempo that works well for you and your voice. Now, for most of us, actually, a clear speaking voice is a little bit slower than perhaps we think. This is why I encourage my students generally to practice reading aloud. Because when we're reading aloud, it's difficult for us to speak too quickly. Whereas perhaps when we're sat chatting with our friends, we're used to speaking a little faster. But when you're reading aloud, it's not as easy to do that. So it's a way of finding where that tempo is for you, where you can speak in a nice relaxed tone of voice, but it's very easy to understand. All the words are nice and clear. Now this is particularly important for us when we're trying to communicate in our second language, because what we really do not want to do is have to repeat what we said because the other person didn't quite understand us. And remember, when we're speaking to, let's say, native speakers of the new language, we don't have to be too hung up on making occasional mistakes, provided what we're saying is clearly understood and it makes sense within the general context or the topic of the conversation we're holding. The native speaker will allow for occasional grammar errors and things like that because they can understand you clearly. If they don't understand you well because perhaps you're too nervous and you say all your words together really fast because you really want to tell them something, I'm like, what? If they don't hear you clearly and they didn't catch what you were trying to say, and if you add into that occasional mistakes with pronunciation, that conversation's going to be difficult. So although it might seem a bit more frightening at the beginning to speak a bit slower and make sure the other person can hear you in a clear way, it actually will help your communication with the other person because now they know what you're trying to tell them. And if you make a mistake with an odd word, they'll easily interrupt you and give you the one they think you're more likely to need. So remember, clarity is key. Keep it simple. Practice with your reading, particularly reading aloud. Find that tempo that works well for you and your voice. It might feel a bit slow compared to how you think you normally speak. But as long as what you say is clear, and you can test this out by recording it, which again might be a shock to hear your voice back. But if you can hear it and you're confident, look, I can hear all those words nice and clearly, this is going to help you more than thinking of complicated phrases to say. So that's our mantra for the day. Clarity. Déjame saber, como siempre, en los comentarios. But for now, we'll say cheerio.